Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Hello everyone, you're listening to a Muslim futurist talking about perhaps one of the most important things I can in this life. This is in some sense a sort of personal episode. The reason it's a personal episode is because I am giving a talk on what I find to be one of the commands of my soul. And I want to explain this as if like I found out one of the reasons I was born, but as a soul, not as a personality. And it has a completely different emotional level to it. See, long story short, I've kind of lived 12,000 days on this planet, and I've made observations, and and somehow these observations, whatever they have been, they have gone through the filtering process of logging in one day and then logging out, and then in some sense there being a gap in consciousness, and then logging back in to what I consider to be an existential server. So what's very fascinating is that it's kind of like they taught you language and they gave you a dictionary of meaning, and they kind of, told you, they sent you forth into the world. But when you look at anything that you can't comprehend, you have to put your attention onto its design. So think of it this way. If there is any sort of urge to solve a problem, or a human being sees a problem and wants to solve it, you got to look at the design of that problem. Okay. And so my psychology, I consider it to be a response, a sort of counter attack to how existential perception has in some sense poetically attacked me. Not in a violent way, but in the sense that reality has made the chess move, existence has made the chess move, first chess move, and now the second chess move is experience. It's like, think of it this way. There's an existencer or existencier, but an existencer and an experiencer. Okay. Consider this view. Now, it's as if I'm saying existence has made its chess move, experience is making its chess move back, and I've in some sense done 12,000 chess moves. That means 12,000 times I've woken up into this realm and I've engaged the content of this realm. And the conclusion I have come, and the journey's kind of like this whole channel so far, you can kind of see it, is that out of all, I reached a point, and let me bring some music in here, guys. Sound is something that, if it exists, God has created. All right, there we go. Where is it? Okay. This song has just been kind of my flow this past 2 days. So to dive into this, why as a human being, I am telling you that whether any human being, any member of the species wants to help me or not with this, but the most important conclusion for human life has been that I have found in some sense that which stands at the top of all human external arguments, that the greatest strategy for the species is to march consciously towards an advanced civilization, realizing the blessing that consciousness is, the ability to actually coordinate with reality, where before reality, it was like you were unconscious and the world moved you, and now you're conscious and you can do things in the world. But the question is, where is the value system of our species, or how is the value system of our species structured? And at some point the mysteries that surround your individual self, you will multiply it by 8 billion. It's the mystery that's surrounding the species. So I will tell you, as someone who saw this world, didn't like it, and wanted to escape into some enlightened truth, I realized my ignorance. And it was as if I suddenly understood life was never about transcending matter. It was about what you did with matter. Do you know what I mean? The whole point of reality is that there's 8 billion human beings on this planet, and they are divided between those who contextually consider Earth to be the final destination and those who consider Earth to be a stepping stone, a hallway to the main event. Anytime there's a test, it's as if ability wants to be recognized, ability wants to be measured. And so you as human beings on Earth, not just you are the most advanced species on the planet, it's as if we have access to dimensions that, birds, squirrels, dolphins can't fathom. Maybe dolphins can, but can't do anything about it aside from jumping out of the water, smile, and give us a thumbs up, even though they don't have thumbs. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, man, how do we know civilization is advanced? Dolphins are giving us thumbs up without thumbs. You know what I mean? You are listening right now to a human being that has had his simulation on reality unconsciously and consciously broken so many times that I've kind of felt that it's not that I know truth, it's not that I've discovered the secrets of the soul. It's just that I've discovered something more important than anything I can fathom. That means imagine someone gave you a gift. It was not a person, it was not a form. It was the power that originated, moves, and returns form to itself. It's as if my fellow species, I want you to imagine it's after Species Unity Day. The smart leaders of all nations come and give their pledge to the nation of humanity that we identify with the human species. If you are human, do you know if you have features of a human? Do you know you are in some sense part of the human awareness of expansion? See, it's in the same way your individual life is expanding, collective archetypes that you're within also expand. It's as if on some level I'm like, okay, I'm okay, my eyes have opened in this world. My body was born, I don't remember it, but my body was physically born, and then at some point my mind logged in. You don't understand. I don't think the mind is born. An awareness finds itself kind of looking through a lens, an archetype. Right now what you're seeing as humanity, if I truly explain what it is, you're gonna get scared. But at the same time, the point of it is not to hold back fear from you. The whole point of it is like, a consciousness, you know doesn't matter if you're in Jersey or anywhere else, but a consciousness, why have you found yourself accessing existential design? Why is it designed so uniquely? Why are you here for a limited time? Why have you entered the world room and you will leave it at some point? When I realized there is no way. Imagine anybody who ever wanted to create an army. Imagine anybody who wanted to, in some sense, create, in some sense, the most advanced movement on earth. You will come to the realization that human beings they shift in accordance to narrative. It's as if they all opt into the same story and they have shared values. And right now, what you're seeing on Earth is 8 billion human beings with boxes over each of their own heads. Even nations have boxes over them, and in some sense, the species has a box over it. And it's like we find ourselves. What does it mean to find yourself as an original awareness in a simulated existence? To a simulated existence? So what do you do inside a simulation? You suddenly realize what you can work with. For me, it's kind of like any moment in life, I don't know what to do. I ante up the stakes in my mind. I increase the stakes in my mind. What does that mean? It's as if like a person is afraid of one spider, right? Imagine they're afraid of spiders, for example. You imagine, do you know, like one day you're walking in the street and your mind imagines if like endless spiders were just coming down the street. What would you do? I'd probably take out my lighter and start burning like like a broken branch with leaves or something. You know what I mean? But the whole point of it is it's the nature of confrontation. Your mind gives you the ability to, they call it abstract rationality, to exaggerate, to wonder, to in some sense, why are your fears designed the way they are? You know, why are your pleasures, desires, joys designed the way they are? You know, I find it so fascinating to be a human being because I'm like, what is this? It's new to me. Do you know, myself is new to me in every moment that I'm animate. And what is the most important ideal? So I'm just going to tell you my meaning structure setup, and the viewers can say anything. And my dear humanity, whoever you are on this planet, if you have ever had any sort of fear, any sort of belief that you cannot be, that the world has not cared to understand you, I'm telling you, drop the illusion, drop the mirage. Human beings can unite, not based on their past, but based on co-creative efforts in the future through one strong narrative and shared values. That means the whole point of it is, I was like, yo, man, I don't have time to, in some sense, treat it like if somebody was like, hey, you have like 100 years since the moment you're born, to build an advanced civilization, to advance the species, to be able to see if before you died, the greatest movement happened. That in some sense, we are like, why can we see that fucking future in our minds? Why is the future accessible behind our eyes, but in front of it, we're waiting? I can imagine my death. I've had dreams of death, but I'm waiting for death in front of my eyes. It's the rage of a temporary existential creature against the madness of such a vast, colossal world. But at the same time, the recognition that their anger is arising because the self doesn't know what to do. And when you realize what you actually are is beyond any thought you have ever had, you are created by that which is beyond the world room, that which has no beginning or end. That means they're like, what is God? It's like, let me simplify it. The original power of this realm, the original moment. We're all simulations. We're all temporarily here. And so, how do you advance a civilization before you die? The first act I've realized is you pray to the higher power. Your prayers no longer become like, God help me. No, 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 no. God help the future of humanity. You see the context shift. You start identifying with the emotions. Like if right now an alien invasion happened on planet Earth, do you know what I mean? How would you feel if one nation was getting invaded by aliens? All the nations would immediately come to aid. It's like wondering about what is the greatest value of your life. I think we got to be honest here and be real here and go and dive deep. It's the notion of, I said, if you're afraid of spiders, imagine like infinite spiders. And in the same way, if we are afraid of the truth behind everything that is being, what is the point of being a being in the world? I understand the point of being a human species is to maintain the human species, but there are mysteries that surpass the human form. When will the species mature ideologically, being capable to realize there is human knowledge and there is knowledge that the human cannot perceive? And so, in some sense, the human being needs strategies in accordance to all sectors of its being. You don't understand. The point of it is, you know how in schools they would give us group projects? Now it's like trying to imagine what an 8 billion people group project would look like. And I was like, yo, man, there's no way 8 billion people can, in some sense, like me to listen to me. So it's not possible any one human can do it. But on some level, I realize it's as if, all right, man, bring out the giant robot. The whole point of it is the future. The future is your general. You serve the future generations. That's the nature of being a human being on Earth. Somebody in the chat section says this one is not life, it's a test. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go through some of the simulations that we're being. Let's go through this. I feel like this is very important. Then you'll understand where I'm coming from, because the title of the lecture is a personal statement. You know, today I just realized, if my failure, I have like one failure in this life. I personally consider I haven't failed in anything. It's all just been feedback loops, you know. But at the same time, if I was to consider one failure I will have in this life, it would be the failure that encompasses them all. It would be the failure to activate the greatest potential of the species before I die. This statement, when I say it, it's funny. There is no emotion, there's just serenity. It's like obvious to me that it's like, see, the question is, are you living life as a body? Are you living life as a mind? Are you living life as a soul? Because the context of each is different. Guys, I like this. Let's go. So, how do I kind of explain to you how I crossed the deserts of my fears? And what I understood, that there is one thing to truly fear in this world: not noticing the original power while it's here. It's as if you're a tourist on Earth, there's something you're here to see before you leave. And that's the point of being a human being on Earth. I don't believe it's in some sense to figure out what the edge of the world is, or in some sense figure out what the soul means. It's all in regards to the action that in some sense ushers the present into the future. Dear human beings, let me tell you what kind of world you were conditioned into, and what its contrast is to an advanced civilization. The world you have been conditioned into is that you have conditioned in you to treat yourself like nouns, and the noun is being valued by the past. So imagine, whatever, you were some creature, and you didn't have like one person training you, or two people training you. You had civilization and everything the past had done kind of training you. So in some sense, what that means is, if somebody asks you who are you, you don't talk about the future. You say, yeah, man, I was born here, I did this, da 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 da. These are the memories I remember about who I am till now. You know, that's my backstory. You know what I mean? And then it's always an identification with the past, but the past was a noob. My past selves were like fools in a lost world. What can I do with it? Do you know what I mean? And so it's as if, check this out, we identify meaning from past to present, but I am that human being in history telling you, begin identifying with your future. That means, imagine they ask me, who are you? I shouldn't say I'm someone who's given around 2,400 talks. I should say I'm someone who's going to give 7,600 talks. Do you see the difference? It's an identification with the future. There are emotions. Your mind has been, any person who has trauma, anxiety, depression, you know what's freaking funny? You're training your mind to in some sense give in to its own past familiarity, but at the same time you don't realize it's as if it's kind of like training. If you reverse the geometry that is inefficient, there's sometimes a chance it's efficient. So for me, I am in some sense being like, okay, what's here? What can it do before it leaves the system? And it's kind of fascinating because the point of life is not understanding status, people acknowledging you. The point of life is, in some sense, it has dimensions and depth, and you need to access these. And we access it not just for ourselves. That means your eyes don't just belong to you; they belong to every human being that has ever lived and will live. That's the point of being a species. It's a hidden identity. Do you understand, for the being? Nations go at war because their arguments are like, yo, in the past you did this, in the past that did that, you know? But imagine the future generations. The whole point of it is, imagine right now you're being your future self's memory. The universe is a simulation. This simulation has endured around 13 point something billion years. Okay, as a sort of metric, as a sort of any attempt of giving it a metric. And the planet is like 4.5 billion years old. Human civilization is what, 300,000 years old, you know? And the whole point of it is, your life inside the human civilization is whatever amount of years old. Do you know what I mean? You have lesser life forms even having lesser life cycles. So the whole point of it is that the only difference between us and other animals is that the environment has less of a control on us, and we have more of a control of what we do in an environment. But we cannot ignore how the early conscious human beings, the moment they became conscious, it was so bizarre, because they're like, wait a minute, is this pain? Is this joy? Is this laughter? Like, what was the first evolutionary entity that laughed, like in the human evolution, right? The first time the human being laughed at something, even discovered it could make noise, discovered it could move, discovered it can and move its fingers. Do you understand what I'm saying? It was as if suddenly consciousness, um, 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 consciousness presented itself, found the body in its presence. Right now, it's very difficult to tell you if what I see just with my biological eyes, it's like, yes, with my biological eyes, I'm seeing a building in front of me right now. But with my mind's vision, the meaning that building has exists there in the mind's vision. So on some level, it's as if, like, before I accept the narrative, who is it? Who is there to accept the narrative, and what are the edge of the limitations of my reality? That's the whole point. So on some level, what the activating the greatest greatness, the greatest potential of the species, activating the greatness of the species, it's all about being like, yo, if you've been conditioned to, in some sense, if you've been conditioned to identify with measuring your value as who you were in the past up to now, if you wonder about it from now, from the present to the future, you will be fascinated to discover that your mind has an ability to look at any geometrical form. And if you've ever seen a film be fast forwarded, your mind can fast forward any design. Do you know? anything I see, it's as if like in my body just sees an object, but my mind is positioning that object in the meaning system that the whole system is, my whole system's functioning through, right? So what I'm saying is, existentially, we're here for 100 years, and we occupy around an average of 7 octillion atoms, and it's suggested it's 10 to the power of 80 atoms in the cosmos, in the observable universe. So on some level, we're this tiny portion of this gigantic existential event that has become aware of itself, and it's beginning to realize, unless it wonders about the unknown and the beyond, and wonders about the edge of its ability or its limitations, it will not it realize that it's making the small big for itself. Do you understand? That means all souls have an ability to make this something small suddenly have big significance. The whole point of it is, it's like, if we are conscious, the whole point of it is, why are we conscious of it? Why wasn't the whole thing automated? So many things in nature are automated. Right now I don't have consciousness to how, like, what blood cell is where in my body. Do you know what I mean? So we don't have that level of consciousness, but we have this sort of externalized consciousness that is aware of the moment, in the sense, like, as if my body has changed throughout the years within my conscious awareness, and the thoughts that I've identified with have changed throughout the years. So obviously I'm convinced we're neither an object, neither a subject. We are actually this awareness present here, but this awareness has an ability to decide. It has an ability to select, to choose. So the whole point of it is, why are we noticing? Why are we seeing what we're seeing? I think that's the beginning of greatness. And so the whole point of it is, get 8 billion human beings to kind of snap out of their own daydreams, like while they're awake. Anything you think you are, anytime you've thought you've known anything, it's like you've closed your system of meaning. They've conditioned you to treat yourself as a noun, because civilization is kind of like designed for nouns for now. But on some level, life is an unknown verb, and you've been acting as a noun that thinks it knows itself. But in reality, what is going on here is very strange. It's like one species out of all the species on this planet was gifted an awareness to reality. Was gifted an awareness to reality. Sometimes I feel, I look at like 8 billion human beings on Earth. If people are like, Mr. Within, what do you do when you get stressed and you have anxiety or something? Honestly, anytime I reach my own limitations, I wonder about what is more important than myself. And my life has completely changed. It has completely changed the moment I was like, why am I so important? And I realized, holy shit, excuse my language, but I'm important to myself, because I'm scared. Because a part of my human life is like, okay, this is going to end at some point. What's the point of like all of this now? So I wonder about the advancement of human civilization. It is my greatest fascination. That means if they were like Mr. Within, let's say, if you had any sort of power, how would you define this power? I would say, if I have any sort of power in this realm, first of all, it's the mercy of the system admin. And it is also, there's one term I identify with: fascination. I'm out of all the attributes in this reality, I'm just going towards what fascinates me. And what fascinates me is, we all think we know where we are, but it's a massive storytelling simulation. Like, the universe is a simulation. It has a beginning and an end. That's the definition. So the planet is a this galaxy. The planet is a simulation. Your body is a simulation of 100 years. Do you know the planet's going to be here simulated longer than us? Do you know the thoughts that come and go throughout the day are simulated? When you look at someone and you have an emotion, it's an instantaneous, momentary simulation. Do you know? And it's all about recognizing that they haven't taught this in school, but this whole time you've been living an inner life. And the issue is civilization is treating you as an external physical being, which you actually are. But at the same time, you are living a hidden life. And what it is that civilization is right now an unauthentic masquerade party. Okay, everybody is masked. It's ideological dress up, because on some deep level, when you understand the nature of what I say, the inner realms, that means, here, let me tell you something incredible. You know, this is one of the I'm so like honored by being able to discover this and share it with people. So guys, whoever you are, there's like a bunch of people listening right now. Just close your eyes, just for a moment. Unless if you're driving, don't close your eyes. But if but close your eyes for a moment, just for one moment. And I want you to remember like what you ate yesterday, any memory. And I want you to see like the food you ate yesterday before you ate it in your mind. Now I'm going to assume, let's say you did that. Okay, let's say you did that. That means your eyes were closed, there was no light beams entering your eyes, and yet you still saw a picture in your mind. That's my point. That's what I'm trying to prove. You can see with your eyes closed. They're like, yo, man, I want to see it to believe it. And I'm like, yo, man, I see even in my dreams. Like, what do we do with that, atheist? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yo, man, it's all chemistry. Relax, atheist, relax. Do you know? Guys, I don't know if I have like the proper music, but whatever. I mean, listen to the talk, not the music, for the love of God. Any person who's ever complained about like background noise, my coughs, it's like you're not listening to the talk, yo. You're here for the concepts, not me. You know what I mean? And plus, like, think about it. Anytime you've walked in outside on the on the cross sidewalk, it's like you've heard so many sounds you haven't cared for. You know what I mean? It's all out of sensitivity of emotion leading the mind rather than actually witnessing your emotion. But anyways, where I'm going with this, guys, is that pretty much I'm this kind of like startled soul that has realized I have like maybe it's as startling as it is, it's also fascinating. Some people are like, oh my God, I have around like, let's say, you know, 40, 50 years to be alive on this planet, or 30, 40 years to be alive on this planet. You know, and they freak out. And there's some people are like, oh my God, I have like 40 years left to be myself, to be this, whatever this was, whatever this could do. Do you know what I'm saying? There's moments I kind of view myself outside of myself as if like, yo, man, if I was some aerial view from the sky and I saw myself, like, what was the point of it? And I realized the point of it is, it's like the species is playing a game of viewpoints. There's 8 billion different DNA, 8 billion different views on reality, and then each mind has access to infinite ways to project meaning into like form. So I realized like the only way, to kind of like advance, I think, a civilization is by telling it, why do you have access to the future? Why can you fathom the future? It doesn't matter. Let's say even if you have desires, let's say you desire, like, how many people desire to be trillionaires right now? It's probably like, like maybe like 70% of the population. You know what I mean? They're like, yo, man, that trillionaire did it. And then in the future, guys, they're going to be like, yo, man, the first human being to reach infinite money. I want to be someone who has infinite money. Do you know what I mean? They're like, yo, man, he goes and puts his card in the ATM and it just shows an infinity sign. You know? It's like all the greedy people in the world have tears of bliss in their eyes. Honestly, guys, let me tell you what it is. I have to advance the species because I got no choice, guys. There's nothing else to do here. You know what I mean? The greatest argument is, first of all, why not build an advanced civilization? Two, it's like just to get to see it. Like that's the cool thing. Like for me, I have like kind of four major quests in this life: to get to see what my most advanced self looks like, to get to see what my most advanced species, the greatest, like, organizational structure of my species, the greatest geometry of it, the most advanced species, and then the most advanced relationship of our species with the world, and then the most advanced relationship with the original power of the simulation that is currently, like, the way I would explain this world. It's like this is why I don't know if it's good for me to become a father or not. Like get married and have kids. It's like, what? How are you going to explain the world to your kids? I'll be like, kids, you're in a you're in a simulated testing zone, in an elemental simulated testing zone, within a divine surveillance state. Everything you do is being logged by a power beyond conceptual form. There's an invisible divine management to reality, and fear is, in some sense, more like a teaching mechanism rather than a portal to chaos, right? And so mankind has to realize that the whole point of why our ancestors were like, be honest. They're like, yo, guys, we don't know how to explain that you're in a bunch of simulations right now, but be honest, please. Be truthful. You know? You know? And people are like, yo, man, TV's saying being truthful and honest is naive and uncool. Why should I be that? Do you know what I mean? And your ancestors couldn't tell you, but they're like, it's a simulation, yo. So for me, somebody could be like, Mr. Within, why do you want build an advanced civilization inside a simulation that returns to the most advanced power inevitably? Because there is one part of the theological narrative that has not been fulfilled. I'm Muslim. I'm a Muslim futurist. I'm Muslim because I consider truth to be beyond the world room. Nothing in this simulated world is true to me. You know, is truth. It's the lower power manifestations. You know. Excuse me. So on some level, I'm like, okay, like, think of it this way: you're not just dealing with like objects and subjects on this planet. You're also dealing with intelligent interactions with forms of life. And forms of life, when we say they're intelligent, it means they have a life force behind them. That means even if you didn't know who I was, you'd be like, okay, there's some life force, there's some energy moving as this person I'm listening to. You know what I mean? So technically, our minds are like a force. I would say the mind is a life force, the body is a life form. This is such an important distinction, right? That right now you're this force. Okay, they're like, Star Wars, am I a Jedi? I'll be like, relax, not yet. Yeah. It's not about manipulating external reality. That was the old era of magic. You don't understand. There's this childish thing in human beings wanting to control physical manifestation in an elemental way. you know I was one of those kids who, when I was like, when I was young, like, my mother would tell me and my brother to like clean our room, and at that point it would be one of those situations where, do you know what I mean, where I, in my mind, I'd be like, what if I could just raise my hand and everything could go back to its place? Imagine every day, like in the future, Housing technology is going to be so advanced that, imagine, you, let's say, clean your house, you set the setting as that, you make that the standard setting, right? And every day, you use your home and your kitchen and everything and appliances or whatever. Let's say you have breakfast and you leave the plates on the table, and you run out the house itself would reorganize itself back into the position it was. Do you understand what I mean? So you would come back to a clean house every day. Everything would go back to its place. All right, guys, to continue, sorry about that. I was writing something for the chat section. And guys, there's so much of this talk left, so I'm going to go with the other song. It had a better pace. All right. So let's dive into it. I've prepared a research portion. We're going to see what AI has to say about this, because I want to learn more too. But the whole point of it is this, guys, that the whole point of this talk and lecture is to communicate to you and explain to you, as one member of the human species, it has fascinated me why this existential position is here. I have studied and I have found clues, and in some sense I have a hypothesis what our task is. That this is kind of like, Mr. Within's recommendation to all human consciousness. First, realize that life is an opportunity. What that means is it can be directed in multiple ways. Second, realize you are a specific design. You've been designed specifically, born in a specific family. More than people should care how they look like, they should care where they have landed on Earth, where their mission begins on Earth. You know, There may be a child born in Africa, in a poverty stricken country, and people are like, yo, look at that poor child. But you don't know. Maybe there's a powerful soul that has intentionally, you know, God has intentionally, commanded a soul to, in some sense, arrive there in Africa to, in some sense, come change it. For example, Nelson Mandela. You know what I mean? It is honestly the march of human potential. What it is the task of all futurists on Earth is to protect. It's to protect the past that, in some sense, cares to enter the future. The futurists are like the guardians of the mind of man and its ability to fathom the future, to wonder about multiple probabilities. You know what the day was that I realized I cannot see the future, and I laughed. It was a very funny day. I realized I cannot see the future because my mind has simulated more than one probability to the future. So I am, in some sense, seeing branches where I should see one branch. And that's the fascination of the human mind. And we compartmentalize it through time as if, we have a mind that's in the present. And then you can zone out and remember yesterday, or you can zone out in visualizing something about tomorrow. But my mind, in some sense, has gone from just being simple geometry, and behind my eyes, life is, in some sense, animate in the same film-like ways it has been so far. So behind my eyes, it's like a copy-pasted version of the outer model of reality as a subjective model, and the mind can move and change the subjective model in ways that is unfathomable to the external. What that means is that I can visualize a flying car in my mind, but physical gravity. I could just imagine a car, not a flying car, just a car hovering in the air, right? And people are like, yo, man, do you know why isn't gravity being applied to our inner realms? It's because your mind is, in some sense, an ability to, in some sense, bridge the limited and the limitless. You are the awareness to the most advanced activity for now in this, let's say, sector, right? And theologically, the clues are way more magnificent, because what it is that the sin that Adam and Eve committed, I find, was that Adam and Hava, like the sin that was done, was that they were in the original world, but they listened to a simulated being and they forgot the original authority, the original command. They forgot the original creator, and for a moment they listened to a simulation, a simulated entity, right? And then their descendants were cast into a completely simulated world, and they were being tested in the simulated world how much they could remember the original, how much they could live for the original power. When Muslims, as I'm Muslim, so when a Muslim lives at the point, there's this word called mutaqin. It means God conscious. Now, this is not something I can give a description to, because it's God's mercy to each soul. But what I'm trying to say is that what God consciousness, perhaps in some manner, can be communicated God consciousness is the realization that everything is priceless because it doesn't belong to any simulated entity, any being that has an expiration date, any being that can end. On some level, it's like, what are you owning? Memories? Like, the the past has played its part, the present is playing its part, and now the present has to fathom what is the greatest thing the future generations can do. We don't want the future generations to be born in this world and they're going to be like, yo, man, what the f did our ancestors do? No, we want the future generations to wake up, in some sense, being blissfully ignorant of the massive greatness that has ushered them forth. And then they're like, yo, the past was nothing. I want the future generations to look at the past and dismiss it, because then their true task of running as far as they can into the future arrives. You don't understand. We can't be just the same old narrative. Our bodies grow and change, and so shall the story of humanity. Right now, immediately the strategy is to unite the species. Whoever you are on this planet, if you've heard If you've heard any of these lectures, the whole point of it is, if you have any care in your heart for the future generations, any human being you will see, you will start assuming if an alien invasion happened, you will treat your species like your family. The whole point of it is, we unite the species before the species destroys itself, or before anything else outside of the species destroys us. Right now, it's super obvious how ridiculous nationalism is. And it doesn't mean we get rid of nationalism. No, no, no. It's like we treat the past as if it's history and it just didn't know better. We just ask the past to be patient to allow the future to perform. That means it's like, guys, there's a genius idea that could revolutionize everybody's lives. For me, I'm like, yo, man, all human beings on earth have opened their eyes, all of your ancestors, and they looked at this world and they're like, where is it going, yo? What's going to happen? What's the point of it? They've all seen this unknown film we're actors in. All right, guys. Before going to the research component of this lecture, I'm going to say, what I've been trying to communicate is actually, it's a very heavy title. It's kind of like, I want to see the most advanced movement of civilization before I die. I want to see, make sure the soil that has been completely covered the seeds of the advanced civilization that are planted. I am trying to tell you that the limits of your consciousness are what you identify with. And if you identify with just a human being, then you have failed to truly look at yourself in the mirror. Because when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see myself. I saw a human organism. I saw a member of the human species. My whole life, I was like, what is my purpose? And I realized that there's a reason I'm human. Like, if I was a dolphin, I'd be kind of like, it would be a dolphin purpose. If I was a lion, it would be a lion purpose. You know, if I was advanced AI, it would be an advanced AI purpose. What really the soul is to become conscious of a higher purpose and move towards it. If advanced AI androids told me, yo, man, what is soul? I'll be like, this is what it is. You notice that which is beyond you and you walk towards it. You know, but you do not destroy the staircase that you've walked, up on. So my whole point is that, see, these are missions, these are testaments for me. Like this, giving 10,000 talks, it's like a personal action, but at the same time, I'm like, yo, man, the whole point of it is to start having everybody, 8 billion human beings, begin singing their song of the advanced civilization. Do you know what it is? It's like a mountain. The mountain peak is the advanced civilization, and everybody's climbing in their own way. And in the middle of this, where everybody's climbing, I'm trying to build like 10,000 like staircases poetically. And when we go up this mountain, what do we find? We find that the value of awareness is not based on the past. It's not, believe it or not, it can be based on the future, but it's not limited to that. What you are actually here for is to confront how your soul, whatever energy and significance you give it, is actually in the presence of that which, in the same way an unknown force maintains your biological and physiological and psychological existence, an unknown force maintains this existential reality. It's kind of like realizing you're not the higher power because you're inside a world that's being administered by a higher power. You are not God because you are, in some sense, created by God. You are an effect. God is the cause, poetically, right? So the effect which has nowhere else to go aside from returning to the cause. Where human beings are actually going is that they're going they're living a simulated life. The soul is experiencing a simulated life and then walking into the original power, meeting the original power of this realm. That means for me, it's like a mystery of like, all right, life has been something so far. I've had so many projections over it, but I've realized they are just my projections. And what is the true depth of reality? What are the surfaces? Just like the ocean has a surface and you can't see its depth, what about everything, all my meaning structures can be a surface? That means the whole point of it is you take the deepest aspects of your life and you make it as if it's the surface to something deeper. Every moment of your life, you are in some sense going through an event of your own intelligence. And how you appreciate your own ability, I think it's not about self praise. People are like, yo, man, I've noticed this, that there's a lot of people on this earth that the way they kind of motivate themselves is they keep telling themselves a good story about themselves. Yeah, man, positive affirmation, but you don't understand. It's like for me, I'm like, okay, the species used to be savage AF, and now, right now, on Earth, there's civility. But at the same time, when I look at 8 billion humans on the planet, I see 8 billion soldiers on a battlefield, and then I'm like, yo, man, are they dressed in the same uniform? And I'm like, yeah, they're all dressed as the members of the human species. Okay, so there's, and then the next problem is, but the issue is they're all lost in their own worlds. So imagine 8 billion soldiers not being conscious of greater command, because divine command is greater than natural law. Do you know what that means? That means for a religious person, anything physical can happen, but what is dictating, what is authorizing the physical possibility is not just the awareness of the human to the event. It is in some sense the awareness of, how do I say it? It's like the formless witness of all forms of manifestation. In Islam, we say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the world, that which is the original power where all simulations stand within its presence. God means that humanity is not alone, there's a higher power working with us. Okay? But this higher power is beyond form because it doesn't want us to get attached to form. That means if somebody comes and says, yo, man, I'm God, everybody's going to get scared. Like, what the F, bro? You know, God is not a concept. But if somebody says, I am God, it's like, that's not possible. You don't understand. You're it's the ego's last resort is non-duality. Non-duality is where the ego hides, hoping you don't realize that the purpose of your life is to be responsible for your future. It's like your responsibility right now is a self. Then your responsibility levels are going to increase to be a species. Right now, if you see me being like, yo, man, who has the time to care for an advanced civilization, you're going to see the future generations are going to care more and more. That means the future is I don't want to say I am in no way a sort of, I don't see myself as a divine agency, but I do see that the world is administered by a divine agency. I do not, the game of the days of playing the games of, yo, man, I'm God, you're God, everybody's God, kumbaya, that stuff is over. Because what if you wanted, if non-duality was the truth, you didn't need to exist in the beginning. You understand what I'm saying? Duality didn't need to exist from the beginning if non-duality is truth. That means Buddha got it wrong, but he was still a graceful soul that was close to God. Even though he didn't believe it was God, but he was, his decency, his heart was close to God. You see, for me, it's like, no offense, but it could, like, even if a shimmering light being appeared and started helping me and helped me solve all the problems in my life, and at the end of it, I was like, yo, random shimmering light being, Who are you? And the shimmering light being is like, yo, I'm God. I'll be like, no, you're not. Nothing in this realm, simulated realm, can be God. Oh, maybe to God, God can be any part of its simulation, but to man, nothing is in the simulated realm is truth. Because if you treat anything simulated as true, you have to treat all simulations as true. So the issue is, what do we do with the notion that we began? There was a beginning. It's like in chess, there's a early game, middle game, and an end game. There's an opening, middle game, and an end game. So similarly, it's kind of like every person, like some people are still in the opening, but some people have kind of like they set up their decisions, have kind of created some sort of chess opening in their life. You know what I mean? And now we're in, let's say, human beings, the modern humanity, living humanity, is in some sense the middle game. Now the whole point of it is, do we quickly exchange queens and usher ourselves in the end game, or do we somehow make smarter decisions in the middle game? For me, I'm like, yo, if I care to see my most advanced self on this planet, like even if I became the most advanced self right now, I wouldn't know, because I'm not in the most advanced world yet. Now the most advanced world, the final civilization, is actual paradise, Jannat al Firdaus, but the final, heaven, you know but at the same time, we're inside a simulation, and there endlessly beings are emerging in this simulation. And it makes sense. They say, like, what's the difference between a stupid person and a smart person? Now think of it, as they say, a smart person learns from their mistake from the first time, you know but a stupid person keeps repeating the mistake, for example. So right now we have to be like, okay, it's not a person we're thinking about, it's a lifetime. What constitutes a smart lifetime? What constitutes a stupid lifetime? And so to learn from our lifetime means to update the system so the future generations, in some sense, don't need to go through the unnecessary, because we have advanced beyond it. Any system you have advanced, if you like, this is how you can tell the geniuses on earth. They're the ones who, they don't just cross, like, imagine there's a bridge that's like, there's a rope on a part of an old school bridge that isn't like, it's kind of loose. Like everybody would pass that bridge not caring, but the genius would tighten the rope. That means they would see something the others are not seeing. Now the cool thing is, there can be an argument that there's 8 billion geniuses on Earth, because there's 8 billion unique DNAs, unique conditioned humans, that see reality in ways that nobody else sees. But the issue is, we're not united. And there hasn't been enough decency for a complete freedom of the human mind. Because right now, in public, people are putting always their best in the public spotlight. You know what I'm saying? That's the game they're playing. But in reality, what you are, or who you are when you're alone, in complete isolation and solitude, or I should say complete solitude, not isolation, but solitude. In complete solitude, let's say you go in a forest and you just sit on a rock or something, you know what I mean? And you just take in the moment that you're a living being. The point of it is the expectation. How real is my expectation on the future? For example, 10,000 talks is possible, 100,000 talks is not real. You know what I mean? It's not enough for the lifespan. So, on some level, I have to be like, okay, I could have my mind pretty much has access to an all you can view, let's say, hilariously, buffet of perception. Now, the whole point of it is, how do I assemble? That means it's as if I'm this awareness that has an awareness to its own value, has an awareness to how it values the multiple rooms I'm in the sense of like, I'm not just in my own context of meaning. I'm in a societal system. Do you know what I mean? And it's as if I'm a human being on Earth right now. We're all like, history live streamed, being live streamed. That's what it means to be alive. But anyways, guys, I think there's more to say about this talk, but I would say that I've realized as a soul in this world that it's not just about attaining physical clarity, or just financial clarity, or subjective clarity, ideological clarity, or emotional clarity. It is realizing like what's happening on this battlefield that we've opened our eyes in. It's not a battlefield in the sense of death, but in the sense of a battlefield of ideas fighting over our attention. And so we as human beings have to realize, why did our ancestors talk about critical thinking? Because it was the ability to consider, what if everybody got it wrong and you had to start from scratch? What if your own life force had to rediscover what is actually going on? And you would be fascinated if you did that, actually. So for me, guys, the whole point of life is, I'm not just the self. The self is a part of the species. I'm not just a self that is part of a species. I'm a self that is a part of a species that is in a world. I'm not just a self that is a part of a species and that species is in a part of a world, but I am in some sense the awareness to the great conductor beyond the wardrobe that all symphonies are aligned to. That means for me, if they're like, yo, man, where does all knowledge lead? I'll be like, it roots back to the deep mystery of being. You at some point realize you're not here to understand life, but you are here to have an awareness that understands what you're here, a specific thing you're here to do. It's as if your soul has arrived in a world, and at some point, even though we're logging in and out of this existential server that we're experiencing, and I kind of treat it like a multiplayer online game. If anybody's ever played a multiplayer online game, you sit behind a desk with a computer on it, and you become this avatar on a 2D screen, pixelated screen, in this digital map where there's like, millions of other people. Okay, and and so it's as if you're like a cyber character. Now imagine this physical life right now is a multiplayer online game, but instead of online, it's like it's an alive game. Okay, and it's instead of being 2D and pixelated, it's 3D and made of the periodic table and particles and elemental. Okay, it's an existential, it's 3D. Okay, so right now, every day I've woken up, I've logged in to this character I've been, and it's like with the save data and the checkpoints of yesterday, and I've kind of lived another new day and then logged out at night before I sleep. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Like, how fascinating is it? And at the same time, inside the video game, we're not just an objective, we're not biochemical, we're not just a biological, objective biological organism. This biological objective organism is also a citizen of the linguistic simulation of the language, the language simulation. What that means is that you have a name, you've been named. Any human soul that has a name right now, you know, you have an extension, you have a subjective existence. Because you have a name, now there could be a character associated to that name, and that character tends to be the archive of what all the selves you've tunneled, your awareness has tunneled through up to this point. So now I'm saying, shall the species have the courage to truly see what its most advanced, greatest activation is? And the first effort is 8 billion souls, simulated beings, look at the sky and they pray for the system admin to, in some sense, activate the greatest advancement of humanity known in the realm. That means you pray for the greatness of the legacy of your species, because theologically, God created man, the human, by commanding it into existence, and then commanded it to say all the divine names, all the attributes of manifestation. In another way of saying it, it's giving it created man's mind, and then showed it to its everything that it had created, and all manifestation bowed to God's greatness and God's great design, right? And due to one disagreement, we have in some sense been cast to in some sense see what is the true. Why did all creation bow to God's command? Because on some level we are seeing that we are not any just type of intelligence on this earth. We're a user with system admin privileges. And in Islam, the holy book, holy Quran, it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, man, the human being is a vicegerent. It's an ambassador of the divine attributes of the divine attributes of what the creator has manifested. You see, Islam is an introduction to how the higher power is beyond human form, human conceptualization. And it's like if a politician gave a speech to an anthill, the ants have such a giant gap of even being able to fathom what the politician's saying. Even if they saw the politician, it doesn't mean they understand the politician, right? So similarly, we have to consider if there is a possibility, which 100% there is. Like if we are like a higher power to the lower power that are ants, like we could 100% be ants to a higher power. Now the whole point of it is our species, because it's intelligent, what sort of interaction does it want? And because we're all ushering towards an advanced civilization, that is what the dreams of our heart is. To truly advance in civilization means, sorry guys, how long was this on mute? Anyways, to continue, where I'm going with all of this is I'm trying to simply tell you that if you have cared for yourself, you have cared for humanity. You're a human being. If you have cared for your family members, you have cared for other human beings. You have cared for humanity. If you have cared for the future of generations of your grandkids, well, guess what? The generations of your grandkids are going to have friends. And so on some level, the whole point of it is unite the species, get rid of poverty. Sorry about that. Anyways, to continue, I've just realized there's nothing more important. They're like, what's more important than, let's say, worldly pleasure? And I'll be like, I don't know how to tell you, but if when you're in a looping system, a part of you is searching for novelty every day. And I've just realized, like, yo, man, I've been trying to figure out what my small micro purpose is, but it's to somehow realize the macro purpose of the species is dictating it. The greatest thing that humanity can do and will unite over is the fascination of how incredible an advanced civilization would be. Species Unity Day. Species Unity Day. It's all about that. So I must activate the greatness of the species before I die as a soul. This is about life being not just limited to objects and subjects being valuable. Um, it's not about just being objectively wealthy, subjectively wealthy, emotionally wealthy. You know, there's some people who are very subjectively wealthy, but they're emotionally unwealthy. You know what I mean? And so in reality, it's like we're all living for our future selves, but the whole point of it is, I'm telling you, you got to be conscious of the future world, and every soul needs to walk towards the advanced civilization in their eyes, right? And they need to, it's like we all climb the mountain, and at some point we start noticing we're all walking the same way. We have to be responsible not just for the past or present, but also the future. And you know something fascinating I discovered? Our species has a lot of grieving to do. The species needs to immediately unite, and then incredible healing of all sectors of human civilization will occur. It's trying to get everybody to realize a species on Earth, a species that one day will become interstellar. We never had a population crisis. We could live in our sky. We could live on other planets. We could live in endless star stations. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So the whole point of it is, I'm saying we don't need to freak out about, population, and we have to, in some sense, realize like what is the task and the point of life. For me, it's to find the highest ideal. The highest ideal is to, in some sense, ask yourself, can I see a future to my species? Can I see a greatness beyond human subjective differences? That means, can suddenly every 8 billion beings opt into the narrative that we are one species building the greatest advanced civilization and showing all of God's creations the true system admin privileges, why we are the vicegerent of the one and only, the system admin, that which was neither born or dies and in some sense never gets tired. So, what is the true awareness of the human species, and what is the greatness of the awareness of man? And we have to consider this. Anyways, thank you for listening. And if you want to help me try to activate the greatness of your species, for me, I realized that it's so incredible, because the whole point of being aware of the future is you can still like contribute to it. So I'm saying there was this hidden honor this time, right? This whole time, everybody's been living honorless, but honor the advanced civilization. The most advanced civilization is a divine civilization, which would technically be the definition of paradise on earth. A civilization that is not sinless, but a civilization that is conscious. It is not alone. It's not inside an empty world room. It is inside a living, it is in the living sight of the original power. I'm telling you guys, at some point you're gonna see you're a simulation inside a simulation, and the way out is not analytical or creative. It's God's mercy. It's the higher power's decision. You could be whatever sort of advanced being, but the true advancement, your true advancements, is not dependent on you. So think of it this way: in the Holy Quran, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, I created mankind and jinkind for the sole purpose of worshiping me. That means the main task that we're being tested on is to see if we can notice the higher power, establish a direct link with the original power beyond the four limited forms of man's mind. Anybody who has used religion to be violent to human beings has technically been violent to God's creation. They're not religious. Even though a religious book says you can do something, but at the same time, It's God's creation. Like even from as a Muslim, there was a time in history where there were no Muslims, or there was a time where there was only one Muslim. You know, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He was like the first Muslim, or the first one to realize that context, divine context. So, and then I believe it was Imam Ali, peace to his soul. And anyways, what I'm trying to say is that there has been way more advanced beings on this planet before I was born, way more perhaps advanced ways that energy has expressed itself. But in actuality, the most advanced state is realizing everything that you've perceived, that you perceive as advanced, is just, again, the surface. That means it's like you make you the limitless you fathom now actually the limitation. If when your mind treats infinity as a limitation, you recalibrate to the finite in ways you couldn't imagine before. But ultimately, the whole point of it is the significance of our lives is if life was just about us and what happens to us, and our whole lifetime was a self obsession, we just cared about ourselves, then we wouldn't need to be born in a world with other people. That's the whole point of being in a realm where there's 8 billion human organisms, and they each have different DNAs and different life experiences and different psychologies. And in some sense, how do we align and create the greatest assembly of the human species marching towards the greatest possibilities of its future? And it's so smart that it cannot be violent. Though it's like Isaac Asimov said, violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. Civilization no longer becomes violent. Civilization becomes a greater awareness. So 8 billion human beings will contribute to everybody's blind spot. So the whole point of it is like, yo, before we can know truly our most advanced self, we need to build the most advanced civilization, most advanced world. Everybody needs to be advanced, and then we'll be like, okay, how advanced are we really? Anyways, thanks for listening. It all goes back to the system admin beyond the world room. You have been born in a system, and update the system before you leave the system. It's the greatest strategy. There is a reason the system admin has given us an ability to be aware that we're aware, to be able to notice various viewpoints before acting, for example, and even trusting reality to see how much further that intelligence can activate. We build an advanced civilization in honor of the most advanced power that is moving all reality. That's a divine civilization. We are no longer disconnected with the um, top of the hierarchy archetype. In other words, the most advanced being in the world is a being that has never been born and cannot die. That is the most advanced. It's an original being. We're all in simulated worlds. Everybody's in their own simulated earth, then they step out of their own simulated meaning, and then they realize that we all are on a simulated earth. you know they find themselves in. It's like you step out of your own simulation, you find yourself, you're inside the simulation of the species. You step out of the simulation of the species, you realize you're inside the simulation of a world. You step out of the simulation of the world and you realize your free will was an illusion, because in reality what is moving reality is aware of its outcome before. God already knows what's going to happen. We don't. And so it's very fascinating to be in a system administered by a higher power, and out of all the creatures, all the species on earth, being the most advanced, capable of acknowledging something beyond it. And that is what's leading to the most activate to the activation of the most of the greatest potential of the greatness of the species. The greatness activates because we realize the reason we have a mind that can envision future probabilities and possibilities is simply because there's a reason we're seeing glimpses of our future probabilities. So what I mean by that is that there's a reason the future is here. There's a reason you're a mind. There's a reason not all of this could have been automated. There's a reason you're specifically aware of certain features, like you can raise your hand in the air, but maybe you can't change the direction of your blood flow. Do you know what I mean? So what I'm saying, like, there's certain range of abilities given, a certain situation given. It's like they've given you the tools, they've given you the thing you need to solve, fix, and now they're waiting to see what you do. And it's like a return of, it's like you taking how something outside of you made you significant, beginning realize that that which originally created you as significant. Technically, it means all human beings have a divine contact. That's why their judgment is harsh. That's why, there is the intensity of hell. People are like, why is there hell? Because how would you know the contrast of heaven? How would you know the better from the worse? And ultimately, it's like surpassing duality, being judged, and to see if we are worthy of meeting the original power of this realm. Some people see this world as a school. I see it as a sort of party, as an event, and it's like at every eight, there's 8 billion guests, and they're like, yo man, who's the host? And the host is not a person. The host is in some sense the force that has animated everything. It's like we've opened our eyes on the shoulder of a giant, and people on the shoulder of the giant, like, some of them are like, yo, no man, there isn't a giant here. There isn't a giant colossal event, unknown event happening here. It's empty. And I'm like, you lazy POS, right? That you have given in emptiness out of fear, not realizing that you cannot know emptiness if you're aware of it. That means there's an awareness beyond the emptiness. That means no. If that means if you find true emptiness, it cannot exist. Emptiness cannot exist because the awareness to emptiness is means it's not empty. There's an awareness there. Sometimes the person's like, yo man, prove to me I'm a soul. And I'm like, yo man, what's moving you right now? Is it an object? Is it an idea? Or have you been watching your ideas and your body change throughout your whole life? We say my body, my mind, my soul, even, but who's that my? It's the original awareness. It's like, I think it's my hypothesis is that it's the soul is kind of like the original memory of being created by the system admin before man sinned. Okay, but at the same time, I believe that the soul is a mystery of God. That means for me, the day I became religious was the day that I realized the limits of my imagination, and I realized that there's an unimaginable power here, but this unimaginable power is not responding to our ego. It's like when we stop acting like the higher power and truly see that there's limitations to us as a being, we begin noticing how, in some sense, what is beyond those limitations. Anyways, to advance civilization is the greatest argument of all time, and to experience and advance civilization is the most fascinating thing. That means allow the fascination of the futures and greatness and advancement guide you, rather than the past that couldn't change its ways because the past has passed already. In honor of all that God has existed, it's like, our Lord has created us to serve the servants of our Lord, which is ourselves, to care for reality beyond the ignorance of temporary demise, that we cared and lived truly for that which was important. We found the important before we died. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.